So, Ian, thank you for joining me. Thank you for coming on to this talk show. Thank you for taking out some time to communicate with me and welcome today. Could you please just briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, my name's Ian Gotts. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Elements.cloud.
Great. And what motivated you to start this company?
Uh, it's interesting. I think the story starts a couple of companies earlier than that. I mean, as a
Okay.
background, I was an Accenture consultant, and I used to run very big projects. I left that with a couple of other friends, and we founded a company called Nimbus Partners back in about 1997, and that was all around helping those big Fortune 500 companies do their analysis, business analysis, understanding how they operated. And because they're big, they're highly regulated. So if you're an AstraZeneca or you're a Pfizer or Bank of Montreal, HSBC, then the regulations mean you need to document what you do. We built a really good business there. I was based in the UK at the time, and we grew it to being an international business, and then it got acquired by Tibco, which is one of the big companies in the valley here. And it was the right answer. I mean, we'd grown to a certain point. It really needed to accelerate. And we had some of the largest customers, people like Nestle, were very keen that they were working with a very large organization rather than, say, a mid-sized organization. So the three of us pretty much retired, and I spent some time thinking about what to do next. And I got them back out of retirement and said, well, let's do the same thing all over again. And if I take us back, we had been a Salesforce customer
Hmm.
when we were at Nimbus. So we were from 2001, we were using Salesforce, and we saw Salesforce grow and get to bigger and bigger customers, and have the same problems that we saw those our earlier customers with. Have the same problems with SAP and Oracle. So we said, let's build the same thing all over again, but let's focus on Salesforce. So that was back in 2014, so nearly 6 years old, and very much same idea. How
Hmm.
do you drive business analysis? How do you make sure you're building the right things as quickly as possible in Salesforce without breaking anything? And that's what
Yeah,
we built. The team is based all over the world. Love working with these guys, and it's back to why are you doing this again? Well, it's right. Why do bands get back on the road? I'm working with
hmm,
some guys I've worked with for 20 years. We enjoy working together, and despite the current environment, and 2020 has been a nightmare for many organizations and a lot of employees, we've been quite fortunate. We've continued to grow quite well over that period of time, and but more importantly, we've got those connections between the company and the founders, but also the people we brought on board. So it feels, even though we are very remote at the moment, it does feel like there is a level of cohesion. Sorry, that was a very long answer to a short
no,
question.
no, no.
Why did you start the company? But it's
That's a
I,
good answer.
yeah, but the short answer is we've all got to be doing something.
Uh-huh.
Um, my parents are 99 and 92, and they're still learning and they're still doing new stuff. So yeah, you need to keep active and keep your brain going. You got to keep on doing things.
Definitely, definitely. And how big is the company at the moment?
It's up to about 35 people.
Oh, that's great. And all 35 of them are in United States?
Oh no, no, no. We're spread around the world. We've got team in the US.
Okay.
We've got some team in the UK. Obviously, some of the guys who I'm obviously a Brit, but I now live in San Francisco.
Hmm.
But a couple of the guys who I worked with, the other founders, are in the UK, and we have a large development team in the Ukraine. So we've worked
Oh,
with Eastern Bloc before. They're really, really good.
hmm.
We worked with them with the previous company. They've been fantastic in helping us build out that product.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Okay. And so where did you go to school and what was your major?
I went to school in the UK,
Hmm.
Southampton University, and I was an engineer, not a software engineer at all. I'm a
Okay.
mechanical engineer. So
Oh,
my
okay.
first jobs were taking trains apart and putting them back together again. And
Hmm.
I managed to get it from there. I went into consulting. So I'm
Okay.
not, by the way, I'm not the developer here. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, Adrian, as our CTO, has brain the size of a planet, is just an amazing guy in
Hmm.
terms of not just technically, but also good commercial aspect. I'm very much marketing and waving my arms around and getting people excited about things.
That's great. That's also a difficult task to do, but that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's part of. I've written a number of books, and one of them was a book called Impact.
Uh-huh.
And
Wow.
it's driven off the back of a previous book that some guys wrote called Crossing the Chasm. And
Mm-hmm.
what that Crossing the Chasm talks about is early stage companies to the left of the chasm. It's very difficult for corporates to buy their products because they're early stage, they're innovative, and therefore you need to find a buyer who is an evangelist.
Mm-hmm.
Whilst if you're to the right of the chasm, that's an established company, rather like Salesforce. They have competition. It's an established and known brand. But most startups obviously are to the left of the chasm, and it's a very different way of working.
Mm-hmm.
It involves thought leadership. It involves getting out there and evangelizing, and it's going and finding those customers who are evangelists. So we wrote the book called Impact, which helps you understand how you run a company to the left of the chasm,
Okay.
and that's really what drives a lot of the importance of marketing and that thought leadership for those
Mm-hmm.
early stage companies.
And when did you publish this book, by the way?
That was about 2011,
Oh, quite a
and
long time ago.
anybody can go to our website,
Mm-hmm.
Elements.cloud/impact,
Mm-hmm.
and download. There's an abridged copy there. It's about 40 pages,
Okay.
and you pretty much get the heart of. And we wrote the book not to sell books. We wrote the book to educate the market.
That's a noble cause. That's a good thing. So, did the entrepreneurship life chose you, or did you specifically pick it up?
That's an interesting question.
Uh-huh.
Um, I grew up with parents who were like, "Go and get a proper job. Make sure
Mm-hmm.
you can get a mortgage." So therefore, I joined a massive company, an engineering company, then joined Accenture, where I had a fantastic time for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think entrepreneurship chose me. Some guys came to me with an idea and said, "This would be amazing,"
Mm-hmm.
and I looked and went, "Hang on, I would use this product at every one of my consulting gigs." So I can either be an Accenture and tell stories 20 years later of saying I was the guy who heard of that but did nothing about it,
Mm-hmm.
or I could leave and go and set it up.
Yeah.
And I remember a couple of years earlier, I'd been on an airplane. I was talking to a guy um, who was a lot older than me. He said he'd been offered the franchise for Lego for the whole
Mm-hmm.
of Europe, and he
Okay.
turned it down because kids wouldn't want plastic toys.
Oh.
I didn't want to be that guy. Um,
Definitely.
and yeah, being an entrepreneur is it has its ups and downs. It's hard. I think it's very hard when you're on your own. It's a lot easier when you've got a couple of you. So when you're having a bad day, and they're having a good day, they lift you, and the reverse. So I think,
Definitely.
um, and I think you need to be eternally optimistic.
Mm-hmm. And so, when starting a business, what do you think are the basic skill sets required for a person? For example, if they're starting into tech, definitely tech is a requirement. But in general, even like if they're starting any general business, is there like a common skill set which is required by most of the people?
So a couple of things. One is focus.
Mm-hmm.
Most companies go wrong because you try and do too much. Yes, I'm building this thing that the whole world could use. I get
Mm-hmm.
that, but how do we narrow that down and narrow that down so we can prove it for a market? So that's the first thing, which is having the confidence to say we're picking that market. Let's see if we can make it work. Let's not get distracted. Let's just see if we can make it work for that market. So if you're building you're building a CRM system for musicians. Okay, I
Mm-hmm.
know, actors could use it. I know maybe academics could use it. I get that, but we said we're going to build it for this market, so let's just stay focused on that market. And if you do that, then you get really crisp and a really crisp understanding about what will make it for them really, really pop. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
first thing. Second thing I think is this idea of being resilient and optimistic. Now, that doesn't mean naive. That doesn't mean going, I know it's all going wrong, but I'm sure it'll be okay. But you need to live long enough to make sure that whatever ideas you do come to fruition. If you end up, you can only make last for a month's money, then you're not going to make any you're not going to get any real momentum. By the way, I should say, I know nothing about B2C. All the businesses I've run have been B2B. So therefore, if you're running a B2C company, then you need to go and talk to somebody else.
Okay.
So that's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
First thing was focus. Second thing was you need to be optimistic and resilient, and you need to recognize that if you're building an MVP product for a business, not selling to consumers, you actually have to build quite a big and capable product for them to take not the financial risk, but the personal risk of going, I'm going to use this product. And I think people underestimate how big minimum viable product is when it's a corporate going to buy it. Very different if it's a B2C, where you're going, you ask a friend, would you use that? I've got a phone full of apps that I thought was a good idea, but I've never used. Very different if I'm bringing something to a corporate world.
Definitely.
I'd like to disagree on one thing. You said if you're running a tech company, you have to be techie. You don't necessarily.
Oh yeah, that's
Someone
also
in the
true.
company needs to be.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get caught up in the technology because actually you want to spend more time understanding what the business need really is, and having that ability to go and talk to customers and say, okay, not would you spend money, but will you spend money? Everyone will go, yeah, I'd spend some money on that. Could you write me a purchase order? Yeah, that's not quite what I meant.
Yeah.
So I think the most important thing once you've had the idea is then get enough so you can start to prove it in some customers. And that in the business to business world could take 6 months, 9 months.
Definitely. And so in 2021, especially during this pandemic situation, how difficult do you think it is to start a new business?
I mean, the standard answer is the best businesses are always started at the worst times. I mean, that's the sort of stock answer.
Okay.
Bear in mind, I said it takes you, if you said, right now we want to get started, and it's going to take you 6 to 9 months before you're going to have anything that's ready for people to genuinely take a look at. Yeah, 6 to 9 months, the world could be a very different place.
Yeah.
I think there's no good or bad time. If you had started a business in January last year, which would have looked fantastic, suddenly it all comes to a screeching halt in March.
Yeah.
We sent everyone home March the 13th. March the 13th, we had a Friday all hands call and said, right, everyone pick up your screens, take them home. We're working from home until further notice, and we haven't gone back. So I don't think there's any good or bad time. I've got sort of some other hobby projects I'm working with someone on. Oddly enough, building a CRM system for the music industry. So
Wow.
there's an example there, but it was getting started now. I mean, often if you've been unfortunately lost your job due to COVID, and now is the right time if you've got ideas to start getting those built out. I think there are some amazing applications out there. If you're not technical, some amazing applications where you can start to build an MVP without having to do a lot of coding. There are a lot of no code or low code apps out there where you can put together something that is really quite credible. And I'm just trying to think one I've been using and looking at recently is Bubble.io. 8 or 10-year-old company, amazing no-code platform. You can do a hell of a lot in terms of at least getting a concept out there.
Yeah, definitely.
The whole idea of prototyping businesses, prototyping, will this thing work? Getting something credible you can put in front of a customer and go, would this work for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's with the technology platforms around, now's never been a better time. If you've got that idea and the passion and the effort, the energy, then if you wait 6 months, that won't feel any better than now.
Yeah, that's true. And when you were starting these companies, could you point out some of the failures or issues or hurdles that you faced while going through that phase?
So yeah, I've had several successful businesses and several businesses that haven't worked. I suffer from being like the evangelist, and therefore I pick up ideas and go, this would really work, and maybe too early in the cycle.
Okay.
So sometimes it's been the market hasn't been formed enough, and therefore the idea was too early. And sometimes that happens. Impossible to know whether it's going to be too early. I mean, if you think about how big Salesforce is now, back in 2001, when we became customers, there were 2 people in a shared office. That was the whole of the UK operation.
Yeah.
And Gartner, the analyst, said this will never work. Siebel will kill it. Who would trust their customer data in the cloud? And look where we are now.
Yeah.
So it's Mark had the vision.
Mm-hmm.
He had enough funding to make sure they built something that was credible, and therefore got to market. So the first thing is some of the failures are it's just too early.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's also a second thing, which is people go, oh, I've got this idea and I'm not going to share anything with anybody because they'll copy it. We're all
Yeah.
too busy doing our own stuff to copy. I'm more than happy to give you some advice, but I'm not going to take your idea and go and build it.
Yeah.
I think quite often you don't get advice, you don't bounce ideas off people because you're so worried about, oh, I'll only tell you about it if you sign an NDA.
Oh, yeah.
I've got other stuff to do. So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, if you've got an idea, you need to make sure you test it with as many people as possible.
Definitely.
But people who are in the right market. So if I
Mm-hmm.
said we're building a CRM for musicians, there's no point talking to a bunch of builders
Yeah.
or a bunch of IT people. That's not relevant. I want to go and talk
Mm-hmm.
to what are the challenges that you have if you're an artist in finding other artists? What are the challenges you are as a producer in finding songwriters? How do we
Mm-hmm.
make that connection work? So I mean, just picking that as an example. The other one is companies die because they run out of money.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. That
So
happens.
it happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the trick is not hiring people and not ramping up your costs. And people often do that too early.
Mm-hmm.
They have a view about they're further on in the process. Oh, we've had 2 customers who are interested, doesn't mean you have a market. It
That's
means
true.
that you may be on the right track. And ideally, it's just the 2 of you or 3 of you building stuff and waiting for revenue to come in before you start hiring.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people
Definitely.
start spending money, start hiring people, start trying to raise funding too early.
Mm-hmm.
The most expensive money is equity investment. The cheapest money is customers spending money with you to buy software.
Okay. Those
Yeah.
are
So
some.
early stage company, you go and get investment. The investor says, well, that's great. Well, I'll take 50% of the company.
Mm-hmm.
The company turns into a huge success. That gets to be pretty expensive.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting you shouldn't take investment, but again, it's a balance of when you
Mm-hmm.
take it.
Definitely. And
And again, we're talking about product companies rather than consulting. Some of these things I'm talking about are very different if you're trying to start a consulting firm.
mm-hmm. Yeah, consulting is completely different.
Sure.
That's true. And what were some of your monumental successes when starting these companies?
I don't think you have monumental successes. I
Mm-hmm.
think you have little continual successes and little failures that you keep on getting past. You may look back and go, well, actually, that big customer deal was important, or that relationship with that systems integrator, that consulting partner who's now signed up as a partner. You see those as milestones.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you look back on any company, like Salesforce, go, wow, you're amazing. Look how big it's got. But
Yeah.
it started with a few people in a house in San Francisco and a couple of people in the UK. And you can look at the milestones as you're growing. Again, B2B, B2C. Some apps suddenly have massive success, but then they drop off just as fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with business to business, it's steady growth because you're building on the last thing and building on the last thing and building on the last thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Sure.
any success has got to be continual growth. I don't think necessarily see an exit selling the company necessarily as a monumental success. It was for Nimbus, it was the right time for the company and for the company's customers. Clearly, as investors or as the founders, we did well out of it, and it gave us a chance to regroup and start again.
Yeah.
But I think if you focus on the reason we're building this company is to sell it, or the reason we're building it to
Mm-hmm.
float it, then you've got the wrong point. If you build a successful business where customers value what you do and will spend money every year, the end result, whatever you want that to be, will take care of itself.
That's true.
And as I said at the beginning, we've all got to be doing something. So if
Mm-hmm.
someone said to me today, Elements, that's fantastic, I'll write you a check that's so big that it'll work.
Mm-hmm.
Then what? I've got to start something else. I'm not going to sit
Yeah.
around for the next 40 years doing nothing.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
And part of the fun of doing this is I'm working with two other founders who, and fourth person in the management team who I enjoy working with.
Well, that's great. That's nice. And so when you are not working, what do you do? How do you spend your time?
But if you look over there,
Oh, yeah. I was wondering about that.
I play bass guitar in a, well, I played bass guitar in a band. Sadly, the band has not been doing live gigs, obviously due to COVID.
Yeah.
But I play in the band. My wife's the lead singer, and we've got um, the rest of the band is at the moment sitting at home in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
But we have kept going. We've been creating band videos. I think we've got about 12 now so far. So
Okay.
the band is Jane Blonde, BOLNDE.band.
Okay.
And there was just before I jumped on the call, there was the results show for the Battle of the Bands.
Okay.
So a CRM analyst put together a Battle of the Bands. We had 10 corporate bands.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, the internet crashed and we've no idea what the answers were. But
Okay.
we all had to produce 3 videos.
Uh-huh.
So we got an award for the most creative video. We haven't. I don't know what the rest of the award results are.
Okay.
But that's really good. Music's kept us, has enabled the band to keep on going, even though we're doing music videos.
Yeah.
I think it'd be very easy to just sit at home and just focus entirely on work, and then I think we'll all be worse for that. We need to make sure, as you're right, we all need to be
Mm-hmm.
doing something else outside of work.
Definitely, definitely. And could you share one important life lesson with us?
An important life lesson.
Mm-hmm.
If I look at my parents, I said 92 and 99, and they are still going strong, still loads of energy. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's just a passion for learning.
Mm.
Okay, just there's always something new. There's always something new to do. There's always something new and exciting to get stuck into. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's that enthusiasm and passion for learning.
Okay. And what keeps you moving forward in life?
I think the next new thing,
Okay.
getting excited about the next. If it's about the company,
Yeah.
it's what's the next milestone,
Mm-hmm.
um, and the milestones aren't necessarily purely financial. It's seeing the staff grow.
Yeah.
It's hiring new people. It's just recently Salesforce has created a business process mapping course where I was involved in that. It's now an official process mapping course for all consultants and for customers. It's on the Partner Learning Camp.
Mm-hmm.
Big milestone. That was fantastic. But also
Definitely.
equally as important is seeing our VP of Product Management, the way he's growing,
Mm-hmm.
the way that the marketing team's built. There are lots of those different milestones that are important. I
That's
think that
true.
keeps you going. But also, yeah, we're having some fun with the band. But yeah, I
Yeah.
want to go and win the awards.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to go and play some more gigs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's constantly filling the day with stuff that's valuable and that's
Mm-hmm.
fun.
Okay. And what's your favorite book and why?
Favorite book.
Yeah.
What do I read most frequently? I'm a newish bass player, and there's a guy called Guy Pratt who was the
Okay.
bass player for Pink Floyd,
Mm-hmm.
and but he's now a stand-up comedian. And I must have read his book about 3 or 4 times. It's called My Bass and Other Animals, I think it's called.
Okay.
So that's not the favorite business book, but it's in terms of a fun read.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of business books, I think the most pivotal one has obviously been Crossing the Chasm, and
Okay.
that's why we wrote Impact.
Mm.
And since I've written probably, there's a bunch there. I've written about 10 or 11 books.
Wow.
Um,
That's huge. It's nice. Okay. And so what's the best and worst part of being a CEO?
the worst part is you're only as good as last month's numbers.
Okay.
You need to keep on going. It's all about revenue growth. It's about then you want to hire more people, which you need to keep the lights on. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
probably the most painful part of all of this,
Mm-hmm.
which is that it. And I think the best part is actually about seeing the team grow.
Mm. That's
Is
true.
about I think if I look back on Nimbus and also Elements, some of the best times were the annual company event, where you get to, I'm lucky enough as the CEO, I get to stand up and do sort of the state of the nation, but look back or look out on the team and what we've built together.
And do you have a pledge for 2021?
So, as in sort of like a New Year's resolution type pledge?
Yeah.
Okay. So from a company perspective, it's about focus. It's keeping us, making sure that we stay focused and deliver what we've now built.
Okay.
It's very easy to get distracted. So I started this conversation talking about focus. And the other one is playing the bass some more.
Okay.
Being a bit more rigorous about every time I pick it up, it's 5 minutes of a set of practice before I start playing.
That's nice.
I look at great bass players going, I want to be like them, and the way to get to be like them is lots of practice, but measured, the correct practice.
Yeah, it needs a lot of time. Definitely, I agree with you on that one.
But time spent the right way.
Yeah,
it's easy to just pick the guitar up and just play stuff.
Yeah.
But this idea, there's some specific things you start with to which you're building those foundations. No different from building a business. You've got to build the foundations. You've got to build. You need good processes. You actually need to make sure that you're clear on the market. You need a product that works. There's the foundational things of building a business. Doesn't matter what you're building. You've got to make sure you get that stuff right. You need to make sure you're hiring people better than you. There's some. These all sound very trite. It's the thing everybody says, but they genuinely are the things that make the difference.
I agree. That's true. Okay, so we have reached the rapid fire questions of the round. So they're going to be like short questions, and you can keep your answers also very short.
Of course.
Don't think too much about the question. Just answer whatever comes to your mind.
Okay.
Okay, so the first one is 3 things that no one knows about you.
Sailed in the Olympic squad in 1984, first thing. 3 things that nobody know. Think about what nobody would know. The problem with the CEO is you tend to be quite visible, so lots of the stuff that you do, everybody gets to know about, and the internet is so so transparent.
Maybe fewer people know about that.
The fact I'm a bass player in Jane Blonde in the band.
Okay.
Quite often I'm doing that wearing a wig. And the third thing is that the family's nickname for me is Mr. Bump.
Oh, okay.
Because I seem to be falling off mountain bikes, crashing whilst water skiing.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I
but
hope you don't get injured.
Yeah, but the related thing is that I heal really quickly, so that's
a good thing. Yeah. It's good to stay healthy. That's a good thing. Okay. What's the craziest thing someone has done for you?
I was going to say married me, I guess.
Good answer. Nice. What's the one thing that you would like to change about yourself?
I'd like to be more patient.
Okay. What's your spirit animal?
So Tigger, I would have thought. So okay, you need to be clear. So in the UK, there used to be some cartoon animals. One of them on the back of cereal packets.
Yeah.
And Tigger was part of Winnie the Pooh. So the wonderful thing about Tiggers is, how does it go? They're made out of rubber. Anyway, they're bouncy.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Okay. And what's a rumor about you that you wish were true?
The rumor I wish was true. That I genuinely was the bass player from Pink Floyd.
Okay. Nice. What's the easiest way to...
These are great questions, by the way.
Yeah, I'm glad you like them. What's the easiest way to piss you off?
Waste my time.
Okay. I hope I'm not doing that.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I hate wasting time and I hate wasting money.
Okay. That's good. Okay, so we have reached the end of the interview, and thank you so much for joining me today to do this interview. Thank you for sharing so many things about your background, your stories, like things that people didn't know about you. People might know after this interview now.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed the interview. Thank you for spending time with me, and take care. Thank you for joining today.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye.